Hey, I'm Jason Fitzgerald, and you're watching episode 20 of Q&A with Coach. In this episode, we're going to talk all about how to get strong in the areas that are really important for runners. All right, we are back in the Q&A with Coach saddle. Really excited because we haven't done one of these in about 2 months. It's been quite a while, so I'm looking forward to get back into it. Hopefully I'm not too rusty. Today we have a really good question from Linda, who wants to know, how do you strengthen the glutes and the hip flexors? She's curious because she's been having knee issues after an ankle fracture. So this is a good question. There's a lot of different ways that you can strengthen the hip flexors and the glutes. I mean, classic exercises like squats, lunges, deadlifts, donkey kicks, pistol squats, hip thrusters. All these exercises are really great for strengthening both the hip flexors and the glutes. So, you know, you can just start doing all these exercises, but I want to encourage you to think more in terms of routines than individual exercises. So if you want to implement more strength work into your running program, don't just add 3 or 4 exercises after a run. Implement an entire routine. They're ordered a specific way. They include specific exercises for very good reasons. So I'll give you 2 examples here. Number 1 is the ITB rehab routine. This is probably a routine that if you've been paying attention to strength running for a while now, you know this routine. It is incredibly runner specific. It focuses on the hips and the glutes. And then there's also the standard core routine. Now the standard core routine is what I consider the bread and butter core workout for runners. It's a series of 6 exercises that work all of the muscles in your core, which is essentially your knees to your nipples. All the muscles from your knees to your nipples I consider your core region. This is where all of the power, all of the movement originates from your body. So there are several exercises in both of those routines that are specifically focused on the hip flexors and the glutes, but more importantly, you're going to get a more well-rounded strength program from these 2 routines. If you could do both of these routines twice a week, you're going to be a lot stronger than the average runner. So the other thing that I wanted to mention here is the fact that your hip flexors, they're usually tighter than they are weaker. So most runners have tight hip flexors, not really weak hip flexors. So it's really beneficial to make sure that you don't have any unnecessary tightness within your hip flexors. And so what causes tightness in the hip flexors for runners? The biggest thing is the fact that we spend the majority of our day sitting down. I'm sitting down right now. I sit in front of a computer for a big chunk of my day. You probably do too. So avoiding prolonged sitting is probably the number 1 thing you can do. Try to get up frequently. Try to build in walk breaks or even just standing breaks into your day so that you're not constantly in that seated position, which really cramps up your hip flexors. And as we all know, muscles are plastic. They are very susceptible to the positions that you put them in. So if your hip flexors are constantly tightened up in that position, they're going to be more tightened even when you're standing and even when you're running. And so that can cause a whole host of problems, not only with injuries, but also inefficient running form. So that's something to be very aware of. The other thing that can help with tight hip flexors are just using your foam roller. So get on your foam roller once or twice a day. Spend about a minute foam rolling your hip flexor, but also your quadriceps. That whole region there is going to really help loosen up that area so that when you do go running, your hip flexor won't be as tight. You're going to get a really good follow through on that swing leg as you're running, and you're going to have a more efficient stride. Okay, finally, Linda, the only other recommendation I have is that I know that you had an ankle fracture Make sure that you're also working on some ankle mobility. And this is true even if you don't have a fracture, but you rolled your ankle, you sprained your ankle, or you otherwise have some sort of ankle injury. A lot of times what happens is if you roll your ankle, you'll be fine in a couple days, but if you don't do anything to that ankle, it can heal in a way that you then have restricted mobility. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that your ankle doesn't necessarily have the wider flexibility that you had previous to the injury. So what I'd recommend is do some ankle exercises, things like calf raises, eccentric heel drops, ankle rotations, both clockwise and counterclockwise. You can even do this as long as there's no pain the same day as an ankle roll or a sprain, as long as it's a very mild sprain. So Linda, if you have no more ankle problems, you're fully healed from your fracture, you're back to running, which I hope you are, then implement some of those ankle mobility drills into your your warm up and then maybe even your cool down after you finish running. And that's going to help your ankle regain some of that mobility that you might have lost while your ankle was healing. All right. There's Q&A with Coach number 20. Really had fun with this question because I think it really focuses on some of the areas that runners need to focus on for strengthening. And of course, if we can use those 2 strength routines that I mentioned previously, the ITB rehab routine and the standard core routine, 2 bread and butter routines for getting runners stronger, then I think we'll all be much less injury prone and we'll probably get a little faster in the process. All right, if you want your question on the show, I'd love to answer it for you. Just please submit it to me on Twitter. You can shoot it over to me. My handle is JasonFitz1, and just use the hashtag #RunQuestion so that I can easily find it. Thanks, guys. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you on the next episode.